First, it's preschool drop off, then you're packing for college, and suddenly the house is quiet. These transitions sneak up on us and they change everything. Today, we're going to dive into what it really feels like to move through these seasons of life and how to embrace what's next with our back to school edition. Hi, I'm Jen.
Hi, I'm Erin, and welcome to Beyond the Scale. So, Jen, you're more in the thick of things when it comes to all of this. You have six children. I have one. I'm an empty nester, but I can remember all of these different stages. I'm a little in the nostalgic period of this particular transition. So, tell me a little bit about where you are in this stage.
When it comes to back to school transitions, I'm a little all over the place. So, our youngest two just started high school on Monday. So, we have a freshman and a sophomore. And then I have two sons who have graduated that are just kind of in work life. And then a daughter who will be leaving next Wednesday to drive off to New York for grad school. And then a college graduate who's now married and working full time. So I feel like we've kind of gone through all the stages, but I feel like it wasn't that long ago that we were just, going to kindergarten drop off. And so as we kind of go through, preschool, kindergarten, middle school, high school, college, and now grad school, there's a lot of emotions that are happening. I would say the nostalgia, the pride of like, I'm gonna have a daughter who's a doctor someday. Like that's, a pretty awesome thing. But then also the sadness that as soon as she leaves, I'll only have three kids at home. So there's kind of a lot of emotions going on. And now I know you experienced this with Felicia too, even to the point of going through all school and college and even going studying overseas in Paris for a while, right? And then
Right.
coming home. And then that's another transition, the back and forth, like home from college, back from college, and how that kind of affects the home life and our personal stuff too. But then what's
Yeah.
it like when they move out for good? How does that feel?
It's a big transition. You are happy and excited. They're obviously happy and excited. I always have to go back to who she was from the very beginning. Preschool drop off. All these kids are crying in the hallway. They want their mom. Mine walks off, never looks back, and is
Oh
off. And
no.
I'm looking like, is she upset? Does she miss me? Could have cared less. Could have
Yeah.
cared less. And that really was her all the way through. Like she just was like, yeah, fine. I'm going off to the next thing, where I had more of a hard time with it, of
Yeah.
like, oh no, this stage is ending. Maybe because I only had one, that could be. So it was a little bit more like, okay, that's it. It's done and it's never going to happen again. I was at Walmart and I got a little nostalgic as I was walking by the back to school aisle. I actually texted her and said, "Hey, do you need anything? I'm going to pick up notebooks. Do you need any supplies?" And she's like, "No, Mom, I don't need any supplies." I'm like, "Are you sure? Remember how
It's
fun
so
that
fun.
was?" It was a fun thing to reminisce with her about that, picking up the
Yeah.
backpack and all of
Right.
that. But on the flip side, that was always a really expensive time of
Yeah.
year. She went to private schools, so it was always like, okay, uniforms and all the different
Oh.
costs. There was that. Yeah, I don't miss that too much. That part I don't
Yeah.
miss, but
That's
yeah,
true. I mean, even in public school, there were a few years where, our kids' public school required a uniform and just, yeah, that was, boy, I kind of forgot about that. But you're right, like it's expensive. Plus, it's, we want to make these memories during summer. And so it's like trying to cram everything in. And then all of a sudden it's back to school. And, Sunday night, well, Sunday afternoon, we were rushing around the grocery store being like, shoot, I got to pack lunches again. And like, do we have stuff to pack lunches? Do I have Ziploc baggies? Do you need a bento box? Yeah, there's a lot of emotions stirring. And I think even for our listeners who don't have children at home or are already out of this season, there's still that back to school energy that's happening, whether it is at the grocery store or, Target, Walmart with all the extra shoppers getting stuck in traffic behind school buses. But it does bring up a lot of emotion. So I think it's good that we're kind of diving into this topic today of, maybe just acknowledging how to transition during this back to school time, and maybe share a few strategies that we've, experienced over our time as moms, and kind of see if we can, help anybody out.
Even for the grandmas out there, think of
Yes.
how many grandmas might have been watching their grandkids over the summer.
Yeah.
They may be like, oh, okay, cool. We're going to
Right.
transition where they go back to school. And yes, I maybe still be there for drop off or pickup, but now I'm all of a sudden going to have a little bit more of my day
Yeah,
and time back
that's true.
available to me. I remember, she went to full day kindergarten, and by the end of the year in May, I was like, "No, don't let the school year end. Please keep her a little bit longer." So, there is
Yeah.
that where you're like, "No, no, no, this has been great to
Yeah.
have that time period from 8 in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon
Right.
to be able to do all the things." We talked about time last week and
Yeah.
how we don't get more hours, but we have to figure out how to make the time stretch.
Right.
And so this time period can be an opportunity for many of us to readdress, hey, I might be sad that we're changing into a new transition, a new season of life, but yet how can I make this work so that I can find some happiness and joy and do the things I want to do?
Yeah, we probably will have to revisit this topic in the, in at the holidays, or even next summer, as there's that whole transition of kids moving back home after college, and how, they revert back to being like, 12-year-old messy slobs, and,
Yeah.
expect parents to pay for everything and do all the cooking and the shopping and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, how can we reclaim this time as our own? But I think also just normalize, or let the moms and grandmas and, grandparents in general out there just know that it's okay to feel like this is a hard season, right? Like,
Yeah.
there is a lot of emotion that's coming up right now.
What is it they say? The days are long, the years are short, or so
Yeah.
I forget exactly what that saying is,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
is kind of crazy when you look back at how quickly it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
I mean, I look and my daughter's been out of college for 9 years. I'm like, wait, 9 years? I feel like I was just taking her to go take her ACTs a minute ago. So it's funny when you look back at that time goes by quickly.
Right. Yeah. So I think our first tip would be just to acknowledge the process and acknowledge the change that's happening. Give yourself permission to feel all the feelings. With three daughters, and you also having a daughter, we do feel that pride. We feel that worry. With Mia going off to high school, the other day, I was kind of drilling her older brother to be like, don't ditch her. You say hi to her when you pass her in the hallway. Look out for her on the bus, giving kind of this whole like protect her, right? But then at the
Right.
same time, I don't know, did you ever experience a little bit of like almost the butting of heads during this transition? Not that we're not getting along, but I think the kids are feeling the feels too. And
Mhm.
we're kind of friction is happening. Did that happen with you and Felicia?
College drop off. It was like we were in like opposite rings. I think it was both of us were so emotional, but we were both dealing with different emotions.
Mm,
And so it wasn't what I had in my
right. It
mind as
wasn't like
far
a
as what
TV
it would
show
be.
sitcom of dropping your daughter off at school.
I remember my husband like, "Wow, I got a kiss and you got a bye." And I was like,
Yeah.
bye. It was a very awkward, and the thing is that we're very close and we do get along, and we always have, but that was like it was that time where the emotions were just so high between us that we just were not connecting whatsoever. Of course, it only lasted a hot second before,
Sure.
like we were on the road maybe an hour till she called me and was like, "Bye mom, I miss you." And I
Oh,
was like, "I
yeah.
miss you too." And
Yeah.
so and everything was good after that, but I think that we need to recognize that the kids have the high emotion and they don't necessarily how to handle it.
Mhm.
And and as adults, we don't always handle every situation the way we hope to. Sometimes those emotions are just so strong that they get the best of us. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So maybe even just talking with other parents, I know that there's a little bit of, I guess, pride, um, where maybe I was a embarrassment. I don't know what it is, but where maybe I was afraid to acknowledge that, like, why am I fighting with my kids as they're getting ready to move away and I won't see them for, 3 or 4 months till
Mhm.
Thanksgiving. And maybe
Yeah.
I thought that nobody else was experiencing that, or the expense of packing kids up for college, even buying school supplies and registering. I mean, public school in our area isn't free, So all of that is still kind of happening in that financial stress. And I think I was too nervous maybe to share that, thinking that I might be the only one feeling that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we can at least share that we both experienced that, and maybe that's helpful to somebody else.
For those that have kids in college, you pick them up at the end of the year, you bring all these boxes, and I don't know about you, but these boxes lived in my dining room for a
Yeah.
couple months. So by the time it was time to take her back, I was like, yay, I'm getting my dining room back. Get these boxes. Because it was like, you pack them up and they have a whole other life.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, where do you put all this stuff? I mean, I don't have a very big house, so that,
Right.
but I can remember a girlfriend of mine taking pictures of like, look at this. Oh my God, I can't wait. It's 2 more weeks until I can get my house back.
What else do you think would you wish you could go back and tell yourself, now that you're past that season, as other listeners are kind of going through this transition? Was there anything else that you would kind of recommend or wish that you would have done?
I saw something on Instagram and it said something about with your older children that you get to go from manager to mentor. My daughter will ask me about something and I will still feel like I need to manage her, and I find myself saying, no, hold on, hold on. No, no, no. Ask her what she thinks. Help her
Mm,
figure this help her figure it out. It's not for you to do this. I mean, yes, there is still some teaching involved. Yes, I still get to,
sure.
answer questions on, how long to cook the chicken,
Right,
what's the
right. The
temperature,
advice.
things like that, those random things that, yes, I'm more than happy to give that information, but realizing that as they progress in age, you're no longer you're letting them fly out of the nest, and
Mhm.
and I think one of the hardest things is that sometimes you have to let them make mistakes, even though you're like, oh, I can see it, it's coming, and
Yeah.
you hope that they have a soft landing when they do make a mistake, and that that it's not too hard and it's not too terrible. But yeah, I mean, it really is part of the whole process, and that's the beauty of when kids go away to college and
Hmm.
they get away from mom who's been managing everything for them, and suddenly they're like, oh, there's nobody here to wake me up for class, and oh,
Right.
I don't have any food in the fridge, what am I going to do? So all the moms out there, you might be nodding your head like, yeah, yeah,
And
they
we
figure
and
it
we do.
out.
We have to step back, right? And that's how they learn. That's how we learn. That grown and flown, right? And I think if we've done our job, then they are capable to handle those things, right? Like if we've allowed them to start kind of managing some of those life things as they're getting older, then when they do move out, we know that they'll be okay, right?
Yeah.
And but you're right, that's a great way to look at like this adultish relationship that now you have. Like, yeah, there's almost like go from being a parent to a friend, but also this, I love that, this mentor. It's no longer me managing their time, managing their schedule, their diet, their,
They're everything.
relationships. Yeah, they're everything. Wow, that's good. I was just thinking like something that I'm kind of learning as my kids are getting older is also to just kind of like set up some some relationship time for that so that we don't lose touch, and trying to do almost like to set a schedule to say, hey, every Sunday night we're going to all get on a Zoom call together, as my kids are kind of spreading across the country. Cam's thinking about moving to Arizona, Talia will be in New York, Bodie and Bella are down in, southern Georgia. I- it would be easy to start to just kind of all do our separate things. So I think we're going to kind of try to focus on just that time that we can set up together to say, hey, even if it's a 5 minute, group FaceTime or Zoom call, trying to set up like almost like a non-negotiable, like if you can, we got to make this like a priority so that we're not losing touch.
They though they may not always admit it, they start to miss you and their siblings. It's like there is something, distance makes the heart grow fonder,
Yeah.
where they may not admit that they're feeling a little homesick, or that things
Mhm.
are kind of hard, but having that, knowing that family is still there when they need them.
We still will do individual calls, right? Like so that I can get that one-on-one time, so to speak, with the other kids or family dinners with those who are home. But for all of us to connect and just to kind of stay in touch with everyone, that's something that, during this transition that we're going to try to implement here soon to really, keep that family connection going. I think this is also a good time and transition for us to say, all right, like, what do I want out of this transitional time? Like, who am I now when I'm not just a mom, or when I'm not needed, so to speak? Whether you're a working mom or a stay-at-home mom, there's still this like uncomfortableness of like, okay, so now what? Right. And so
Now
trying to
what?
so using this time, I think, to really redefine it and be like, what does this look like? Whether it's like you mentioned 8 to 2, or is it, hey, from now until Thanksgiving, or whenever I get to, parents' weekend or whatever that might be, what is this going to look like for me? What will I do? Can I block out some me time on the calendar, or, maybe explore a non parent kind of class, try something new, go to museums or libraries for me and not like kid things. What about you? Anything that you want to do to kind of reclaim this time?
Well, I was thinking about how putting together a bucket list. Think about the things
Uh,
that you wish you could have done while you were in the thick of parenting. You may have gotten an invitation from a friend to do something, but you didn't have a babysitter, or there was a time constraint, you couldn't leave your kids home alone, whatever that is. And now you kind of have a much more open calendar,
mhm.
and thinking about, what can I do that I've always wanted to do to fill the hours. So putting together a bucket list, maybe it's, I keep passing that coffee shop. I've always wanted to see what that looks like on the inside. Looking back on, what are the things that I wish I would have done, or now I
Mm,
have this newfound time. How can I fill the hours? Um, I remember my mom gave me a piece of advice when I took her to college, and I was feeling a little sad. And she says, "Go home, turn on all the lights, put on some music." She's
mm.
like, "Just get the house to be alive again."
Oh,
She's like,
like
"The
it's too
quiet."
quiet.
Exactly. Exactly. Because you know what it's like when the kids
Yeah.
are home, it's not
Yeah.
quiet,
No,
but suddenly when you're home alone, you're like, "Oh, this quiet is just too quiet." And that, it actually worked. I will say, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, it got my mind off the fact that it wasn't quiet anymore."
it's a good strategy. And of course, as a health and wellness coach, I feel like this can also be our time, our opportunity to say, what is it, now that we've kind of are in this transition, there's probably been some food, challenges this summer, some things that you're not used to having in your environment, or the eating out, or, baking more, whatever that might look like, or the lack of time to do those exercises, or take those walks that I've wanted to do. And so, although it can be a really easy opportunity to get lost in the quiet, in the sadness, in the transition, in the maybe frustration, maybe it's not just going off to school, maybe it's kids doing, making a choice, or doing, going off to the service or whatever that maybe you weren't necessarily on board with. And there's a lot of that emotion too. it could be an easy time to kind of get lost in that dark space and almost do nothing. And so this is, yeah, like say yes to something outside your comfort zone. Say yes to those things that you've been looking for, whether it's a personal goal or a health goal, maybe a new career move, our
Mhm.
creative life, like we're doing here, just kind of take that
Volunteering.
control back. Yeah, volunteering, giving back to others, all great ideas. Erin, what else do you think about this, transition to back to school? How would you suggest that we use this time like for ourselves to reclaim this time, outside of the
Well, as an empty nester, my husband and I get to have a little bit more time. We enjoy going out to eat quite frequently, which can be good and bad because
kids?
sometimes we go and we have a little bit too much fun. But there is that freedom of being able to make plans, spur of the moment, do things, no babysitter, no, just doing things. And that's been a nice way to reconnect, because when you have kids, it's everything seems to be based around what they like, what they want to do. And then they're just your partner and you end up kind of getting the leftovers. So now it's no longer leftovers. And I would say that's also the case with friendship too. um I've done more girls' weekends and things like that, where it was like it would be complicated for all of us to try to find babysitters and or not leaving our kids home alone, for God forbid they're going to have parties at the house and things like that. So, little things like that, that
Yeah.
now it's like, oh, you want to do something? Let's do it. How about you, Jen?
Yeah, I love that idea of dating your spouse, right? And that word leftovers that you said. I'm sure my husband would appreciate not being, the leftovers, but getting like full attention, not being distracted. Maybe even, challenge yourself to not talk about the kids or what's going on, but really try to reconnect with who you were before becoming a mom,
Yeah,
right? And like what you guys were like as a couple or those friendships. Yeah, I don't know that I've gone on too many girls' weekends, but even just getting together with friends or coworkers, when we try to get together with, some of our coworkers that we don't see all the time, doing that like once a month is just really good for your soul to just reconnect and feel like you again.
it
So,
really is. Yeah, spending time with friends, it feeds the soul. More than food, I think. Feeds the soul.
yeah. Oh, I love that. I've appreciated having this conversation because, like I mentioned, I didn't know that other moms felt this way. I thought that I was alone in this and that somehow I was doing something wrong because I was feeling all of the feels. And so I really appreciate you sharing your, you know, kind of your perspective as well as what occurred in your life during this transition of back to school.
Well, and as you may notice with each child, it's different. Each
Yes.
one is different with how they react to it. I do agree with you. I think it is an important thing. We think we're the only one. And so being able to listen to other people in your similar situation, be able to talk about the difficulties, makes you feel like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. I get I feel understood. So that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need that community. And if you don't know another parent going through this, that's, I think, what the online community can be about too. Whether there's Facebook groups for, where your children are going off to college. I know all of the, younger grades have, classroom pages, PTOs, get involved in those. In those school programs as well, but maybe connecting online might give you an opportunity to even open up a little bit more than if you don't have those face-to-face relationships. But I think we, as women especially, but just people in general, we do crave community and we crave belonging. We
Yes.
hope you've seen and heard here at Life Beyond the Scale.
And we're going to be addressing other life transitions coming up as well, because we know not everyone is in the situation with kids. Maybe it is some other areas, chapters of life. So we're going to be talking about that coming up in the next few weeks. So we're so glad that you were here. If you're new, We're so glad you found us. If you were returning, thank you for supporting us. If you get a chance, if you could give us a thumbs up, perhaps subscribe to the channel, we would love that. Let's YouTube know that you like us and we should stay around. So thank you for your support.
Yeah. Have a great day. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Hi, I'm Jen,
And I'm Erin. Welcome
and we're
to
like,
Beyond the Scale.
we still messed it up. All right. You say the welcome to be on the scale.